My name is Richard Spearman, and I am a descendant of the Algonquin, Huron, and Mi'kmaq peoples. I am a third-year anthropology student at the University of Victoria and a graduate of the Indigenous Studies program at Camosun College. I would like to acknowledge the Lekwungen and Wasanic peoples on whose traditional territory I have worked to produce this digital story. When asked to consider what a warrior is, many people will think of someone who is skilled in the art of war, highly trained and equipped on a physical, mental, emotional, and spiritual level. Indigenous warriors were skilled in a variety of battle techniques, adaptable to the changing environments of combat, disciplined to withstand the stresses of conflict, and motivated by a deep connection to the ways and beliefs of the nation. Our warriors were and are ready to defend the land and the people from all enemies, both foreign and domestic. When envisioning a warrior, how many of us see the faces of children? For 117 years, Canada waged war on Indigenous children based and conducted upon religious and political ideologies. During the residential school era, Indigenous children were forcibly removed from their families, communities, and nations, and placed in the care of settler-controlled institutions. They were subjected to serious bodily and mental harm in the form of extreme physical, emotional, and sexual abuse. They were deliberately exposed to conditions of life within the poorly constructed residential schools that exposed them to various infectious diseases that would cause the death of an untold number of children. Writing on the deaths in residential schools, Duncan Campbell Scott stated, "It is quite within the mark to say that 50% of the children who passed through these schools did not live to benefit from the education they received therein. The stated purpose of the residential school system was to kill the Indian in the child." The inhumanity of the treatment of Indigenous children would continue across Turtle Island until the last school closed in 1996. The harsh reality is that while many of these children died from exposure to infectious diseases, others committed suicide, unable to deal with the continued abuses they suffered on a daily basis, and others met their end at the hands of the people who were entrusted with their care. While an accurate accounting of the number of children who died may not be possible, the reality is that these children were buried in residential school cemeteries, far from their families, communities, and nations. In the spirit of truth and reconciliation, now is the time to begin to heal these wounds. With Canada's signing of the UN Declaration on the Rights of Indigenous Peoples, the state has endorsed as Article 12.1 states, Indigenous people have the right to the repatriation of their human remains. Rather than a right, the repatriation of our children should be considered a responsibility that we all share. Rather than demand that our children be returned, we should take the initiative of generating a repatriation plan that is a reflection of Indigenous worldviews. The children who can be repatriated should receive proper burials according to the customs and beliefs of their families, communities, or nations. There will undoubtedly be a number of children who cannot be identified. In this instance, we may want to consider acquiring the lands where our children are buried as a means of protecting the sacred nature of these lands, ensuring that their remains will not be further desecrated. As Vine Deloria Jr. has stated, whatever information is obtained in higher education must, in the Indian context, have some direct bearing on human individual and communal experiences. In this instance, one could consider transforming the destructive nature of archaeological field schools that destroy cultural sites in the pursuit of knowledge into a force of positive reconciliation and healing as their skills are used to repatriate the missing children of the residential school era. As Tyche Alfred states, it is still true that the first part of self-determination is the self. In our minds and in our souls, we need to reject the colonist control and authority, their definitions of who we are and what our rights are, their hypocritical and pacifying moralities. We need to rebel against what they want us to become, start remembering the qualities of our ancestors, and act on these remembrances. This is the kind of spiritual revival that will ensure our survival. Now is the time to honor our ancestors and bring the missing children home.